mainline trains are getting closer and closer to the real thing. Now they've got electronic steam sound built in. Steam sound sets from Mainline Railways.
This video's taken me a while to prepare, but today I'm finally going to be talking about Mainline Railways' electronic sound range of 00 scale locos and show a working example of all three. If you want a more detailed read on this range, you can check out the website covering the history of the Mainline brand. Although it should be mentioned, the first sound-fitted locos came out in early 1967 when Wren Railways released its two-tone horn control sets, in which the horn could be operated from a panel wired up to the track. Though these were released in small numbers, and finding one working and intact, let alone cheap, would be like finding a needle in a haystack. The most common sound feature in triang locos was the chuff-chuff tender. No wires or speakers, just a violin sound box with a piece of sandpaper attached to a clip that's triggered by the axles when moving along. And this would live on with Hornby's B12 locos until the start of the 2010s. Of course, in addition to sound locos, there were also sound generators and recordings, though you can see these being demonstrated on other videos. Back on topic, Mainline's model trains were designed from authentic loco drawings, as if they were shrunken down representations of the real thing, and in an attempt to bring them closer to the real thing, in 1980, Palitoy added electronic sound, first to steam locos, then followed with diesel sound locos a year later with the addition of horns and whistles. And like I said in the beginning, I have all three working examples of each sound release, so let's start with this LMS Royal Scot from 1980. It's interesting to note, like the early triang releases, the sound doesn't come from the loco itself. There's no way a circuit board small enough could be fitted on a split chassis motor. It comes from the tender. A transducer is built into the circuit board, and the sound is triggered with an on-off cycle by the axles as they rotate. But where does the power come from? What else but a 9-volt battery? Although giving the tender some weight, it more or less has to balance on top of the circuit board when fitted. So as you can guess, the loco pulls the tender along, making that characteristic chuff-chuff noise depending on the speed. And when it stands idle, the hissing noise is on a continuous loop. Although there is no switch to turn the sound off, the instructions recommended slotting a piece of card between the axles and the contacts, so as not to drain the battery. A year later, Mainline enhanced the modules, wiring them to the loco motor so they could draw power from the track, also emitting a whistle sound. This example is a late BR Green Jubilee class named Orion. With no battery, the tender is connected to an outlet in the loco cab. The volume on this is certainly louder than the previous module in the Scots tender, and the whistle is also triggered by a button placed under the tender should the loco go over a ramp. Normally these models do come with a ramp that can be fitted when assembling the track, but this Hornby male pickup spring works just as well. Lastly, here we have one of the diesel sound fitted locos, a BR Green Warship High Flyer. This one was recently refurbished with new gears, although I was lucky to film this fully working, as towards the end of filming the sound stopped working when the loco was thrown into reverse. So the sounds only now come out when the loco goes forward. The circuit board and transducer is wired both to the front bogie and ring-filled motor. The sound on this one is hard to make out unless running at a fast speed, although it does include working lights at each end. In addition to pre-fitted locos, the sound modules were also available on their own, so they could be fitted into any of Mainline's existing releases, other than some locos that were tender driven. So there we have all three working Mainline sound locos. No doubt, had the range lived on, we could have seen more improvements in the sound technology, as well as enhanced performance, with plans at the time for smoke generators to be fitted, although they weren't robust enough, with Hornby taking up that opportunity for their locos in 1982. But when all is said and done, it's fair to say the eventual development of DCC has resulted in superior sound technology fitted into locos so small, although DC sound has lived into locos such as Bachmann's Speed Sound Thomas. So what do you think of Mainline's sound range? Does it still stand up today, or does it sound ready for the scrapyard? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, thanks for watching.